Quick video today to answer a question and take some stuff apart or explain something. So you can see here the air box. This is above the carburetors. So this air hose here, this goes down and connects down here, right there. So it just is basically a straight piece of hose. The one below it here comes off the carburetors, and that just vents out to the atmosphere. That's a factory hose. You're not going to get it to spin like that. And then below that, we have the fuel lines, and they go to a T, and then they go over here. So two fuel lines come out below that air tube, the air vent. Then you have two fuel lines, and I'll show you on the other bike over here, but it doesn't have this petcock. This is your vacuum operated petcock. And then that comes into here, and then it goes off of here and then runs over here and into your gas tank, to your other petcock that you can turn on and off. That's just the vacuum operated one. They separated it, I don't know why. But over here you can get a better look. The vent tube right there in the middle, that comes up. I have it moved. That's this guy right here. So there's that. That's your vent tube. Under that, there's those two lines that come out to the T right there, and then that goes across here. Here you can see where that upper tube goes from the air box from there over to there. That just vents from the air box to the engine. And then down here is your fuel lines. They go to the T that always breaks, and it goes over here. See, we're missing the vacuum operated petcock. You can kind of run these bikes without it. I don't know if it runs great or not. And then from there, it runs over here and goes into your fuel tank. I hope that helps. Let's move on to showing you how the starter clutch works. If you're wondering what the inside of a starter clutch looks like on a 3rd gen Honda Magna, this is where the springs sit in. They go in there, and then the roller goes in there. And then this is a one-way clutch. I don't really know how that works, but when you put all this together, it only goes one way. I guess these push against this and keeps this from spinning backwards. So yeah, there you go. Everything looks good on the inside. I had a customer ask if I could take it apart and make sure there's no cracks, but everything looks good to me. And I just had to loosen up these 10mm bolts on the top that holds this plate down on there. So I'll reassemble this. I'll show you quick. This spring drops in here. There's a hole in there. You see that? That just drops in there. And then I don't even know what you call these things, but then your roller drops down in here, and that kind of holds that in place. Push that back, drop this in. That's where she sits, just like that. And then the other two, and then this actually could have slid out, no problem. But anyway, that's what your starter clutch looks like. It's a one-way clutch. And we'll reassemble this and put it back together and get it sold. We're gonna do a quick little lesson on the starter clutch and why yours might not be working. So there's a spring in here, you saw that. There's a cap, not sure what they call that. And there's this roller. So if the spring breaks and doesn't push this roller out, it's not gonna keep this thing from moving. So it will spin, let's show you this. It'll spin this way, but it's a one-way clutch. It will not spin that way because these are being pushed out here. If they were pushed back this way, that would allow it to spin. I can't do all three, and I'm not gonna break it because it's sold. So this is your reduction gear. Starter gets a pulse. Starter spins this, and it spins this. And then this connects to the rest of your gear. See? This lines up here. No, wait, this lines up here on these guys. And then, yeah, your starter's on the outside of your engine, goes into the engine. There's a seal, keeps oil in the engine. This lines up with this reduction gear. This goes to here. This spins one way. I'm not sure why. I'll have to do more research on that, but it only wants to spin one way when this spins. And then this keeps everything in place. So we're just gonna slide that right down on, and and we can put in our screws and send this out. So there you go. 3rd gen starter clutch. This is, if you start cranking, it goes rear, rear. Something's not, either these are slipping, or maybe this is worn. Maybe this is, well, no, this shouldn't be worn, but it could be because that slides onto a shaft. These might be broken and not pushing these out to engage this. So just saying, if you have broken parts in here, anything cracked, busted, not pushing these rollers out, then that could be your issue. So starter clutch, real quick, real easy, and that's what we're dealing with today. See you guys on the next one. Get out and ride or fix your starter clutch. You can buy those little parts on the inside to rebuild these. There you go. We're gonna take apart these 04 CBR wheels and front end. If you need that, let me know. I'm gonna go ahead and clean up the rotors first. We're gonna pull these rotors off and the brake calipers. That's basically what we're gonna do. Strip out the axle and tear this down, and then the front end will be available, and the wheels are probably sold, which is why we're doing this. 12mm bolts for the caliper, and then what's this, a 5 or a 6? Probably a 6. Yep, a 6 hex for the brake rotors themselves. 100 grit to clean up the rotors, and it's easier to do them while they're mounted, except for the inside. Yeah, it's just as easy. Easy enough with the 12mm bolts, and she's free. On this side, there we go. There's our front caliper, and on the other side, we'll grab that off too. Beautiful. We also had a 12mm up here to get this off of the suspension and off of the forks. We're back here with the 6mm hex to get these pinch bolts out. These just hold that sucker in place. And then we need a big one for there. 22 down here, broke it free. And the axle should just pull out. Make sure you grab your spacers. And we probably have, it looks like just maybe some spacers there. Here comes the bolt, or the axle. The bolt actually tapped it through. I put it back in and tapped it a little bit with my mallet, and then we just grabbed it here and pulled her through. There's our axle, and like I said, we're gonna pull this off, get any spacers, and put the bolt back on the end, and then that's ready to go. Here's our axle. There's a little spacer on the one side, and then one with a lip on the other side where this bolt goes. And there's our axle. I usually sell them in pairs if I can find the rear. And let's go ahead and pull these rotors off. And those we can list also. Looks like we're missing some bolts, every other one. Okay. Here you go, front end all torn down. We got the wheels. I took those rotors off, but my buyer wants them, so we put them back on. Oddly enough, there's only 3 bolts instead of 6. Same on both sides. I don't know, I bought this as a parts bike, so probably someone swapped them and just put those on to hold it. There's our rear. Cush drive already sold. Tires are shot, but that's fine. Here are our shocks and our front end, lower triple tree. I don't know where, or I probably still have the upper. Yeah, I do, because I was trying to put this front end on the other bike and it didn't fit. So I'll find that. And then of course, our brake calipers, master, handlebar, broken lever. So that is done, and we'll move on to the next part. Gonna get pictures for eBay and stuff and move on to the next one.